Felicia Michaels, my princess, has been entertaining audiences with a unique
Joey
style
Coco Diaz has
of
been rocking
provocative humor
comedy
since the
stages for
90s, all right?
15 years.
With her
You've seen him in
tongue-in-cheek,
films and
she's been
television,
exploring
but
such
his
topics
real
of the
repertoire,
dynamics
as
of
he's
the
fond of
male-female
saying, are the
relationships,
stories from
or
his
as we call them
past
here in
and
the
his
studio,
chaotic
dirty
views on
thoughts,
life that will make
and
this
the
podcast
proliferation
a different
of the
beast.
sensual
Raw
feminist.
pain and
She's a little
passion is how I
firecracker
really
rolled up, and that's why I
describe
love
this
her, and that's why you're going to love
New
listening. So
Jersey
tune in, all right?
animal.
Greetings to all you cocksuckers out there in Podcastville. You got my girl Danny Skirts
And I'm here with my man, Joey Coco Diaz.
for another fun-filled episode of Beauty and the Beast podcast. What's happening, you sexy animal?
I'm happy to be here, filling in for Felicia Michaels while she is still at court.
On trial for extortion. That's what happens.
She's a badass bitch.
Hey, man, that's what happens. These motherfuckers will hold you back for 10 years on something. That happened in 86, but what are you going to do?
It catches up to you.
Danny Skirts is very interesting. I was with you last night.
Oh my god, that show was so fucking awesome.
We did a show at the Brea Improv. Tremendous. Joe Rogan, Jerry Rocha, Yoshi Yamabochi, whatever his fucking name is, my main man, and yours truly, Danny Stewart.
And Edwin San Juan.
Edwin San Juan, the flying Filipino, bad motherfucker. But it's funny, you said something last night. I was asking you about your schedule today, and you said you were going to swing by, do the podcast with us, and then you said you were going to go to a meeting.
Yep.
And it's funny, how long have you been sober?
I've been sober 7.5 years.
And what made you get sober?
Drugs and alcohol. No. I was a really big drinker. Ecstasy, cocaine, acid, mushrooms, and mandrakes were my drugs of choice. Mandy's for those street folk. And shit just got out of control, you know, and I think I hit a bottom with it like probably 4 years before I got sober.
Were you here? Did you get sober in LA?
I got sober in LA. I think I hit the bottom in Boston, moved here. I was kind of skidded at the bottom for like 4 years. You know, it just got worse and worse and worse. And then I found myself, you know, just miserable. You know what I mean? Just like, I call it spiritually bankrupt. I was spiritually bankrupt. Like I couldn't connect with people no matter how much I drank or whatever drugs I was using. I couldn't get in that happy place anymore. I couldn't have fun. I was fucking up all my relationships, you know, like I was meeting a guy and everything was going well, and then I would like drunk dial him at 4 a.m. You know what I mean? Like I was just doing fucked up shit, and it just got bad, and I didn't know what to do, and someone suggested, you know, that I might want to go to a 12-step program, and I was like, all right, I was desperate, you know, I'm like, I'll check it out, and I checked it out, and I got to tell you, like, I first started like, okay, I'm not going to drink for 30 days, and I did that, and at the end of the month, I felt so great that I was like, I'm just going to keep going, and I just did 30 days at a time for like the first 6 months, and then once I was 6 months in, I was like, you know what, if all I have to do to be a part of this, you know, program, which is just a great spiritual program, is not drink, then you know what, I'm in. And it hasn't been, you know, puppies and ice cream the whole time. It's been tough. It's a big growing process, but I feel like I'm of this planet again. You know, I just had gotten so into my own island of just crazy, like the darkness had taken over in my mind, you know, and I just, you know, and when you get, if you dance too much with the devil, if you say, like, you start to get, you need more and more to get off. You know what I mean? You need more and more fucked up shit to be happening. You know, I was picking up guys at bars, fine, that's no big deal. Then it was like I had to cheat on my boyfriends to like have a good time. Then I needed to, you know, I mean, it just got more and more and more.
It's just a bad wheel. No,
yeah.
It's just really interesting to see that. You know, you're a grown woman, you look good,
Thank you.
And you're calmly, you're on the ball. But I'm always interested, I always love asking people about their sobriety. Was it as hard as you thought it was going to be? Like at times before you got sober, you thought about it, you're like, there's going to be hard, me not living. Is it as hard as you think?
I didn't think it was possible to live sober. I thought it was possible for other people. Like, okay, that's fine for them, but they don't understand what my life looks like. Because drugs and alcohol were a part of my life every single day. You know,
right? There was
it's like giving up coffee.
Day.
I mean,
yeah.
I know that sounds stupid, but it's like that's part of my life every single day. And yeah, it was once I learned how to live without picking up drinking and drugs, which was hard once, then it was easy for a while, and then life kicked in. And when you have to start dealing with real life, real problems, real issues, I don't have money, my mother's sick, that type of stuff, and you don't have your drugs and alcohol to deal with those feelings, then you get to another level of like, okay, this is tough. But the cool thing about it is that people don't realize is that there's the 12 steps, which actually aren't bullshit. Like that program is 100% works if you do them. A lot of people don't do them. They think, I know a lot of people who say they're sober, but they don't go to meetings or they don't work a program. And it's like, good for you, dude. But like, you can't be, the 12 steps are there. That's what heals you, And so because of those steps, you actually get better and you get insight and, and then the magic of it is then once you get to a place where you've been through it, and then you can offer that help to other people who are struggling. So like I sponsor people, I help other people who are getting sober and let them know, like, I guarantee you this is going to get better. You're feeling this way now, then you're going to feel this way, then you're going to feel this way, and you can really kind of teach people what you've been through, and that's the coolest part about it.
It's crazy because we get a lot of emails. I answer a lot of emails, and recently, started about 2 months ago, I'm getting a lot of emails from 21, 20-year-olds, 24 that have already been fucked up, like on opiates and shit. Like I've gone through rehabs and they always say, now I'm clean, I'm not doing heroin or whatever no more. And it would be tough for me at fucking 21 to have to go to a rehab because they shut the fuck. I wouldn't even dream of it at 21. No. I wasn't even fucked. So I give you young guys that went in, at least gave it a shot, courage, because at 21 I didn't even know drug problems existed.
No.
I thought it was just a party. People just got high and it was just the way life was, and some people didn't get high and that's just the way life was. I didn't think there was substance abuse and alcoholism, and then once you find out about it, that's when it hits you of all the people that, oh my God, he was an alcoholic, oh my God, he was a junkie, oh my, whatever the fucking. But it's so weird to talk to people. Like I've always admired people who one day said, fuck it, I'm going to change my life completely. That's a tough thing to do, and to, like with me, I changed my life, but for a long time I dabbled in the criminal aspect of it, or I would go back and forth. Like I wouldn't do drugs for a year, or I would always do drugs, but not to the extreme of other times, but I would dabble in other things, which was part of my madness. Do you follow me? It was part of my devil.
Right.
So it was like a complete cycle of the drugs, the criminal fucking enterprising, and it was complete. And even now, like, I wouldn't even dream of shoplifting a lighter.
Right.
Like, that's my main thing. I love shoplifting lighters from 7-Eleven and shit. Those nice
the
big
little
lighters.
Things in life.
When they leave it out, I'll fucking kill you. I'll try to get like 3. My record was like random. 6 of them on Curse Island and Sunset, that little right there by Jody's.
Yeah.
My record was 6 of them one day. I just kept ordering shit. Every time he'd turn around, I'd put
in one swipe.
One swipe.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Not one swipe. I would swipe 2
right,
and then put it
right.
in one pocket, and then he would say, "Give me $3 for the magazine." I'd swipe 2 more, put the lighters in, take the $3 out. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of weird, but you have to. It's like I have a friend now who's sort of clean and sober, but he's still getting pills for people. He's still in that lifestyle. I gotta go because I gotta meet this guy. If I get him this, he'll give me $1,000. And he justifies his actions with the money, but there's really no money there. To me, at the end of the week, there's no money. They're going to show up with $600 and have to give you 4 later, and then the 4 turns into something else. Hey, but I pay for the hotel. So at the end of the week, you're just there because your addiction wants you to play on the line. It wants you just to flirt with that feeling, the danger of it. And towards the end, I've told Felicia, the last 4 years I'd snorted coke, maybe even 6 years, it was the danger aspect of it. I like the action. I like the action. I like that creep in your mind. This is how creepy addiction is. I haven't touched cocaine in 4 years. And the other day I was driving, I'm like, fuck. Ever since I stopped doing blow, my income went down instead of it going up. And I'm like, maybe I should start doing blow again because maybe it's like people who are single and then get married and have a bunch of kids and their income has to go from like $1,500 to like $6,000 and they make it happen. They make it happen.
Right.
When you have 3 kids, all of a sudden one day you're like, I'm not a college graduate. I'll get a job selling cars. And next thing you know, you're making $200,000 a year selling fucking cars. And you're like, how do I do this every year? Well, you got mouths to feed.
Right.
So there's a lighter under your ass every morning that you have mouths to feed. And once you get your mind thinking like that, and the other day I was just driving, I go, maybe I should start doing blow again because my income will rise.
But
maybe,
but it comes out in the wash.
Yeah, it comes out in the wash.
Probably
and
less.
I was like, no, I would never fucking get high again. But it's so weird how, your mind plays tricks on you forever.
Dude, and that's so true. And one of the biggest mistakes people who are newly giving up an addiction make is they want, and that it's so common. They go, all right, I'm getting sober. I'm going to do yoga every day. I'm giving up smoking. I'm not going to smoke weed. A lot of people, give up drugs and alcohol at once, and that's fine because the 12 steps kind of deals with that one thing. But, I kind of think that if you're a big boozer, try to quit on your own first. And if that means I'm not going to drink and I'm just going to smoke weed, see how that works for you. If you can manage it that way, you should manage it that way because it's less dangerous. You know what I mean? But a lot of people can't. But if you can, I know people who have given up addictions and gone to weed, or people who've given up meth and just gone to drinking.
Well, it's a transfer of addiction.
It's a transfer of addiction, but if you can keep one end in check, then
you'll
cool.
be fine.
Be cool. But for a lot of times you can't. But like you'll transfer addictions. Like I gave up drugs and alcohol, but I always used drugs and alcohol to get to sex. You know what I mean? That was really like what I used it for, which I didn't realize till I gave it up. And then the sex thing was out of control. Once I got sober, sex thing was out of control, and shopping and sugar, all that stuff was like I gained a bunch of weight. Like I was, on looking at the internet at porn, like it was out of control. And I had, that took a couple of years to kind of get underway. So you kind of have to deal with everything in time. You can't be like, you can't go from snorting coke 5 days a week to doing yoga and fucking not smoking.
No, I don't believe in that either.
No, you can't do that shit.
It takes time. I tell people that the thing that killed me was I had to stay clean for 30 days one time. I was having surgery. And I'll never forget, I was telling Ty, I finally copped to it. I stayed clean. I still smoked weed, and I told the doctor, and he goes, listen, just lay off the blow and don't smoke for at least 3 days before you go into surgery. Let me tell you something. From the minute I woke up in recovery, I was like, I'm going to get a package. Not tonight, right now. I got out of recovery at 10 in the morning. And I'll never forget that
But your mouth's watering thinking about it.
As soon as my eyes opened up, I can't describe the feeling to you. Like with the tubes in my arms and shit, I'm like, are we done here? Yeah. I got to go. And they're like, no. The insurance covered you till tomorrow morning. I want you to relax. I said, listen, I got time to relax. I gotta go. I got up with the tubes. I had to get the doctor to sign me out. I remember I wanted to get out of there so bad. They're like, it's going to take about 20 minutes to get your car. And I got the valet, come here, here's $50. Get me the fuck out of here. Within minutes, my wife said, how much did you give that guy? $50 fucking dollars. She goes, we have to stop at the pharmacy and get some medication. I'm like, no. I got to stop with my boys. And she's like, for what? Because she knew, but she didn't know. I'm like, we got to go over there. I got to get a book from him.
A book. And
then from there, I went right to the weed store, and they already had the bag filled. Because I told them the night before, listen, I got no time for fun and games. My wife's when I want to go home, just have the best shit ready, have some platinum, this, that. And I remember going there and going home. And I never really told a lot of people this story. I remember going in the house, sitting down, putting my feet up, getting a thing. And while she's in the kitchen looking at prescriptions and talking about the hospital, in my hand is a gram of blow in a baggie, and I'm crunching up the rock. It was real soft. I'm crunching it up, and I'll forget going into that bathroom. It had to be 11:15 in the morning. I was stitched up, and I remember just doing a bump, and I remember I could feel like the fucking stitches like bursting in my neck.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I sat there all day doing little bumps in front of her, like I would eat Vicodins to take the edge off. And then she went to bed, and I think I ordered another gram of blow, and I did that, and I'll never forget, like months later, I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? That's the end of this shit. And I knew that I wasn't just going to give it up. It was, I had given up the cigarettes at that time, but there was still the blow, there was still like other little shit in my life, and I said, what I need to do is get my character back. I need to get my, what used to get me in check back. And I actually joined Kung Fu. I actually went and joined karate. Even if I was doing blow, I would go the next day. And they kind of knew. I was coming in once a week, always sniffling and sweating profusely and shit. And I remember after a few months, I was like, I can't do blow and come here. So I started not doing blow the nights before, which is pretty fair.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do coke before acupuncture, and I wouldn't do coke before the 2 days of karate. And then,
how very disciplined of you.
But it started with 3 days. And then I did heroin. My buddy sent me heroin in June, and I did a little heroin. I was like,
how was that?
Tremendous.
Yeah.
I'm like, all these years I've been fucking around with coke, and this is the drug.
Yeah.
But he would send it to me in $7 packages, so he would send me 3 at a time. So I would just do 2 lines on a Monday, and it would I would stop doing coke. So for 2 months, I didn't do coke just by doing a little bit of heroin on Monday. How sick is that shit? I would just get enough to get high. I wouldn't even barf. Like, once you puke, that's when it fucking kicks in.
Yeah.
But I would just get enough just to hang out and smoke some weed and shit. And then, I don't know. It was a system that just happened because I started caring about my life more. But it all started with Kung Fu and the acupuncture. You know, from getting clean 3 days a week, it started to 4 days a week. And okay, you're still snorting coke, but I was actually beating it 1 day at a time, little by little.
Yep.
And I knew this in the back of my mind. And all of a sudden, the situation happened with the cat, and I made a promise to God that if the cat would live, I wouldn't snort coke. And it was so weird because I came to peace with it, and I worked on it. I knew that there was a goal. I just wasn't going to quit everything at once.
And honestly, that's really the smart way to do it. It's baby steps, as ridiculous as it sounds. I mean, I was I was 5 years sober. And, you know, and like I said, the sex thing was always a thing for me. But when I quit drinking and started kind of getting involved in, you know, promiscuity or whatever, I noticed something that I'd never noticed before when I was using, which is the high that you get on dopamine when you, like, I mean, I'm a sex addict pretty much. Right. And what makes a sex addict is somebody who, when they're presented with a sexual scenario, their brain releases like a massive amount of dopamine. It's almost like you're on E,
right.
But it can last for a month if you know how to do it right. I'm like an expert. So, I mean, you know, this is years of, you know, and what I mean by know how to do it right is like how long the tease goes on for, like, you know, like it's great to get involved with someone who's across the country because you can't like scratch the itch, and then you get to keep the flirtation going on, and that will keep the dopamine up. Anyway, my point is I met this guy who was foul looking. I mean, he was probably 5'3", overweight, just got beat with the ugly stick. This guy had nothing going for him, no redeemable qualities whatsoever.
Where'd you meet him?
I met him through comedy. I mean, he's not a comedian.
Right.
He was like it's just somebody on the outskirts,
right.
kind of. Yeah, but he was revolting.
Right.
But something about him drew me in. I think it was because he lived on the other side of the country. He was like visiting when I met him. And he was so gross that I was sexually drawn to him because I knew that I could do whatever I want. I was going to be the hottest piece of ass this guy had ever gotten involved with, and therefore I felt, you know, like it really turned me on, you know what I mean? And so I had this flirtation going on with him for a month. We were sexual text messaging, and then we graduated to kind of Skype sexing, that whole thing, masturbating in front of each other, that whole thing. And then we finally made a plan to meet, and we met at a neutral city and fucked all weekend. And it was insane. I mean, it was insane with all of the buildup and the fact that, like, I just didn't care. I mean, I would let him do whatever because I had no consciousness about it. Like, I was not self-conscious about my body, whatever. And it was just amazing. But then, after that whole thing ended, and, you know, the other thing is weird that I, like, kind of hoped or expected that he would like worship me because he was so gross. He didn't at all. He was completely like had me at arm's length, which drove me bananas. But then when the whole thing was over, he kind of like lost interest or whatever and moved on. I crashed so hard from the dopamine being gone from my brain, worse than I had ever crashed on E or coke. I mean, it was brutal. I was crying for 2 weeks straight in my apartment. And that kind of started this bottom that I hit in sobriety because I wasn't working a program. I was making sex, you know, my higher power or whatever. I was basically using. I just wasn't using drugs and alcohol.
Drugs, yeah.
And I crashed so hard, and I hit such a bottom, and there was all these other stuff going on in my life. I had this like bad situation with the Comedy Store, and so there was like career stuff going bad. And I just like, for 2 weeks in my apartment, I barely even got out of bed. And it was so brutal. And that's when I realized, it wasn't until then, which was like a little bit over 5 years sober, I realized like, this is what's going to happen if I go back to this, you know, sex addiction or the drugs and alcohol. This is how bad it feels. And it reminded me, without having to pick up drugs and alcohol and being able to keep my sobriety date, that it's truly an addiction, and that I will pay for every high I have. I will pay in a low, you know. And that was a blessing, even though it was so much pain. It was a blessing because I got it, you know. And I recommitted myself to my program, and honestly, my life has not been better. You know, it has been so great since then.
That was one of the most insightful conversations on sobriety I've ever heard in my life. You really broke it down. I'm a dopamine fucking freak too, but I'm not like a sex. I'm a dopamine. My own shit goes up and down just from, and it's really weird when you do the blow all those years. The crash is fucking horrendous,
and it gets worse.
And it gets really weird.
Yeah, it gets
because
worse.
the high gets worse. The high goes somewhere else, and the crash goes somewhere else. And I never had crashes like where I stayed in bed for 2 days or was suicidal. I just had crashes that my dick was in the dirt. You're in the fucking dirt, you know. And that's just and it's such a horrible, horrible feeling until you're not in that realm of pain anymore. Because that's all it is, just a realm of pain that you're involved in that just keeps evolving and evolving. It goes from your shoulder to your knee, from your knee to your foot until you know. So it's just that. But that conversation was as insightful as shit, man, because not too many people could see that deep inside themselves.
Well, you know, it's the work. You know, when you get into that much pain, that's where you either have to shit or get off the pot. You know, that's where people kill themselves. Either you have to look into it and go, how did I get here so I don't get here again? Or you think it's never going to get better and you either go back to using or you kill yourself. I mean, that's what happens. And I see people in the program I'm in, they're offing themselves all the time because of stuff like that. You know, and because I'd seen it, I knew that I was in big trouble and I needed to get the fuck better.
And it wasn't even about the booze or drugs. You hit it.
No. I was 5 years off of it. I didn't even crave alcohol and drugs.
Amazing.
But that's the transference, and that when you were talking about the disease wanting, like the addiction wanting to get you, it'll find a way. If you weaken your spiritual program, it'll get you. It will tell you, like a classic example is men who, didn't get a lot of pussy. And then they finally find a woman and it clicks and they get married, and all of a sudden single chicks are coming out of the woodwork because they see that ring on his finger, and all of a sudden they're like, and now he thinks to himself, oh, what I needed to do was get married, and now I can go out and fuck other women. And then he gets himself into a world of pain because it's like that thinking, not I'm grateful for what I have and I found a woman and we've built a life together.
No, they find a clique.
And they go out and they abuse it, and that is all the same fucking disease. Alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction, shopping. It's all a disease of perception. It's the thought that this is the cards I've been dealt, and I have to, operate from a place of fear, or that things are never going to get better. And you know what I mean? It's just this, I don't know, like when I get really bad with my alcoholism, what goes on in my brain is, this is it, it's never getting better. This is it, it's never getting better. And that is where we get into the danger zone. On the flip side, as an alcoholic, your ego gets out of control too. When things are going well, you're like, that's right, motherfucker, I'm the man. You know what I mean? And you're walking around, dissing people who can't do anything for your career. You know what I mean? It's just, it's such a Jekyll and Hyde thing,
it really is.
And it's awful. You really got to keep it in check, and you can look like a real asshole if your alcoholism and a drug addiction are out of control, even if you're not using.
The funniest thing is what you just said. When I was 28, 29, I got hooked up with a felony, and I ended up going to prison. I came out, and they put me in a halfway house. And like a month into the halfway house, I got my girlfriend pregnant. Mm-hmm. So I had to get married, so we wore engagement rings. I never got more pussy from that July. I think we got married September. I never got more pussy than when I put that ring on. Then it was something that, and it really showed me the other side of women, how fucking crazy women are. Mm-hmm. And every woman I got involved with, and I was in the halfway house, I was at the halfway house in Boulder, okay? I was in there for kidnapping. I mean, they had a fucking eye on me like you wouldn't believe. First off, where I kidnapped the guy was right across the street from the halfway house. So that was what the dish that karma sent me back as a reminder for me to look at that fucking building where I kicked that door in and went upstairs. while I was in there, I had a rush to get married, to get this money. She was Catholic, the whole fucking wedding was huge. So I was selling Mitsubishis, which at the time had the Eclipse, and it was the hottest car in America. So if you sold 10 of those cars in a month, you made $5 grand, $6 grand. I was selling 15 of those motherfuckers a month. Starting that June, I was selling coke at the halfway house and at the dealership and not using.
Wow.
Selling, because I knew if I start using, they're going to get me. I'm not going to be able to get married. So I would buy synthetic gloves and just weigh up fucking ounces all fucking day long and 8 balls in the morning. I would weigh them at the halfway house. This is the craziness I'm involved in at the time. I'm loaning money because it costs $85 a week to live in the halfway house, and your rent has to get paid every fucking Thursday. If you don't have $85, they wouldn't give you a furlough for the weekend. So I would lend out $85 for $107. Don't tell me where the number came from.
Right.
I just thought it was a cool number. People were like, $107, yeah. $85 for $107. And I got that a day later. And I had 20 of those motherfuckers on my payroll. I was a one-man wrecking crew. And all that shit I was doing, the shit now that haunts me the most is having that wedding band. And how, because there were girls on the first floor. And I was going basically from room to room and banging all the different girls. There was a girl that I would knock on her door, right? And she would open the door. I'd give her like a gram a blow. And she dropped to her knees and sucked my dick with the door open while people were walking in the hallway. All of us were looking for the security guard. This is how crazy it got. I used to fuck her in the food room where they would give you TV dinners for the week and shit on top. And I think back at that, and I'm like, oh my God, there was another chick in there. I had a gym around the corner that I paid $35 a month for before I got locked up. I always like lifting in gyms because you don't have to lift in a garage.
Right.
Because you don't have to lift it. So I paid $35 a month. I had a punching bag in there. I had fucking weights. I had reefer. I had a stereo. And I had a little box of condoms in the corner. I was like the creepy guy from Silence of the Lambs. The chubby white girl that was really hot, she was just fucking hot at the halfway house. She would meet me at the supermarket and we would go to my garage and fuck. And I'd drop her off at the halfway. I mean, it was just such a creepy existence I had. That was the creepiest I ever was in my life. And at the same time, I'm living this life with this woman. Like, we're going to get married. I'm looking at tablecloths. And,
Right. Even though you were living in the halfway house.
oh my God. I remember pulling up to the halfway house at 10 o'clock for the car dealership because I didn't have to get until midnight. I would pull in at 10 or something because I still had like hours to go out. I'd come and change out of my suit, and 40 inmates would be clapping when I pull up to the building. Yeah. I'd go upstairs and start selling coke. I didn't sell weed then because you couldn't sneak it in, but coke you could sneak it in.
Right, because it doesn't smell.
But it was such a creepy existence I was living. It was such a creeped out fucking... I remember getting married and being on the fucking plane with her. And we were the only, like, we got married in the afternoon and got on the plane Saturday to go to San Francisco for our honeymoon. I had to get permission from the judge. It was such a creepy existence. But I remember even on the plane going, is this spell of this pussy going to end now because I married her? I'm never taking off this fucking ring. This thing was like a pussy catcher. And it was something that we got divorced. And I knew it at that moment on that plane, that this wasn't going to last just because of the sins that I had done. You know, all this creepy shit while I was with her. And it's just weird that what happens to women when they see, do they try to test you?
No, you know what? I think it's a combination of two things.
What is it with the wedding band?
I'll tell you what it is. And I'm not one of these women because I've just, but there's two things at work. One is I don't think that people don't realize, women especially don't realize that they themselves are actually a lot of times just as emotionally unavailable and afraid of commitment as men are. And so when you see a guy with a wedding band, then you don't have to worry, like, what's this guy like? Is he gonna, it's just like, this is just sex. And there's something hot about that. There's something hot about, like, he's, it depends on the woman, but it's like, he's not going to call me. He's not going to bother me. He's got a life of his own. I'm not going to have to worry about getting in a relationship with him. This is just dick and pussy. The other aspect of it is that when you have your mind on something else, you're getting married, okay, I'm going on to this other life, there's a shift within you, within the guy, that's, you're not looking for pussy right then. You're focused on something else. The desperation isn't there. And whether you know it or not, you're not open. The store's not open. The store's doing something else. And women can smell that. And everyone wants something they can't have. So you go, oh, it's closed for business? Really? Let me see if I can open it with this shit, you know? And so it's the challenge aspect of it, and it's also the draw, you know, of unavailability. You know what I mean? Of just like, you know, you've got something else going on in your life. And, you know, women are very catty and very competitive. And so whether you're aware of it or not as a woman, you go, you got a woman? I'm going to put her in her place and get on top of you. You know what I mean? It's like a competition thing.
Fucking crazy?
It's
fucking crazy?
It is. It's really, it's gross. Like for me, I never thought I was a competitive person because of that aspect, because I don't like a dude that's married. I don't like a dude that has a girlfriend. I don't like a dude that has anything else going on but me, because I'm such a fucking narcissist. But when I got into comedy, I realized, oh, I'm actually really competitive. I'm just not competitive with that, you know? And I don't like drama. I don't like drama. I've created it. I've done it. I've danced in it. You know
exactly how to smell it. You know what it smells like. You see it coming a mile away, and you're like, is it even going to be worth it?
Yeah.
I don't. I gotta tell you something, and this is weird that I even got, but this was the lifestyle I had. This is what, because we all stray from our road. As a young man, as a 10-year-old guy, there was a guy in my life that was like he was my godfather, and he was a fucking shooter, man. This guy was a fucking heavy duty shooter. I mean, he would shoot you. He had no qualms with putting a fucking bullet in you, and he was in and out of jail and. And he was
Cuban?
Yeah, he was a Cuban guy. He's my godfather, and that's really strong in the Cuban faith. And he would pick me up on the weekends, and he showed me guns. And when he used to go away, he had a wife that was very open. Her name was Nina, very hot Cuban woman, long hair, blonde streaks. This is the 60s and 70s, Jack. This bitch had blue eyes. This bitch was banging. And when she went out of, when he would go to prison for his stints, she would hook up with this one particular guy. Now, she's as white as can be as a Cuban woman, but in Cuban, mixed relationships were, that's part of the Cuban thing. Half of them are fucking black anyway. So it's weird that she was dating this guy. They used to call him Black Marcello in Harlem. He had a bar up in Harlem, and he was a drug dealer. And I remember them coming to my house, and me taking my mom in the other room at an early age and going, I don't like that. And she's like, well, what do you want her to do? Dottie's in fucking jail. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't like that, I don't like that shit. And it always stuck with me. And then as I got older, I remember doing, I was a street guy and doing crimes and stuff. And anybody who cheated on their girlfriend or their wife, I always found a flaw in their character. And I've talked about this in the podcast before. I always found it as, if you do this to the person you walk down the aisle with, the person who has your back, what would you do to me?
Right.
In a bad situation.
Right.
So if somebody's really, really tight with me, like I've had friends for years that are really tight with me and they stray off and sometimes they get a girlfriend, you know what? I don't want to know about it. Just do me that favor. I really don't want to fucking know about it. I really don't want to know about it.
Especially if you know the wife.
Yeah, I don't want to know. And I like most wives. It's not. I'm the type of guy that, a lot of people, I look at a guy and I look at something like Felipe Esparza, who won the last comic stand. I've known Felipe for fucking 13 years. And I'm going to tell you, Felipe's success right now is because of the woman he's with. I could tell when a woman makes a guy happy at home and vice versa. I get along great with my mother-in-law. I didn't meet my mother-in-law until I was with 5 years in. 5 years in, I used to have a phone relationship with my mother-in-law. Because on the phone, she could hear that her daughter was happy. It doesn't take a fucking moron. So I don't even care what you look like. I don't care what you've done or what you've been. My little girl's happy. And I feel the same way with friends. I may not like somebody, but if they're good to a friend of mine, I got to accept them because they're making my friend's world that much better. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's the type of guy I am. But I've never really believed in it. And things are going to happen, Danielle. Things are going to happen. We're comics. We're out at night, and I was telling that story. Did you hear that story last night about, you were in the room. We're talking about Knoxville.
Oh, yeah.
About the fucking, things are going to happen. All right, things are going to happen, Danielle. You're going to be in Miami one night. Fucking Letterman's going to come up to you. His assistant wants you to suck his dick. It might happen, Danielle. Right. It's the phone calls. It's the pages. Meet me for coffee with your wife. That's what gets me.
Yep.
Dog, we're human. And things fucking happen. And things happen, Danielle. Things happen. But it's the guy that makes plans and goes away on the weekend and creates that whole web that I don't, that's where it.
It's the difference between first degree and second degree murder.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like one is premeditated and one's in the heat of the moment.
Things happen, dog. Things happen. You have a bad week at the house. You and your man have a fight. You go to Kentucky. The guy looks like Brad Pitt. You're not gonna lick his fucking nut before you leave Kentucky. You know,
Right.
who am I to say
Right.
or whatever? But whatever, you know, just things happen. And I just always have found that I'm a fucking scared motherfucker of karma. I'm scared of karma. Karma comes back in different shapes, forms, and energies. And I'm, you know, like I said, I robbed this guy, and now they made me live across the street from where I did this crime. That was just one of the many things that hit me with the karma about that crime, you know.
Right.
After the whole crime was over, after the whole thing was over, I think I cleared $18,000. You know what my attorney bill was? $18,600. So I lost $600 and lost 2 years of my life to do this fucking crime. So that's karma. You know, it's, the karma's a motherfucker.
Something came up last night in the green room where we were talking about one comic who complained to the Improv because one of the Improv's employees, sort of, you know, freelance employees, had tweeted something about him that was negative, and he called the Improv and said he wanted him fired. And Rogan was saying, well, you know what, in his defense, you know, this employee was
Said
making
something mean.
his
Right.
life uncomfortable and making him lose confidence, and he's the headliner and he's the one who's bringing, you know, ticket sales. And you were saying, yeah, but you know what, you don't do that. You don't fuck with the guy's,
Well, there's
job.
two thoughts there's two frames of thought here. I was on the receiving end of a fucking person trying to just go out to break my balls. Mm-hmm. And I was shooting something, and the Sopranos called me, and they said, we want you to play the brother of Pussy for 4 episodes. And I was at the Sony, and I said, I can't take the sides at home. Can you just email them to the store? And on the way home from Sony, I got a spot at 10 o'clock. I'll just pick them up there. And the lady sent them to Sony, and whoever Duncan, the talent coordinator, on the way down, dropped them off and gave them to Eleanor, the waitress. She's a waitress at the store. And Eleanor took the sides and said, oh my God, you're reading for the Sopranos. So is Dom Irrera. So she calls up Steve Sharippa, who she's friends with, from Vegas, who I had worked once for him, and he just didn't like me. Some people in life just don't like each other, and you gotta understand it. You don't have to say nothing. I just didn't know why, and I didn't know where it was coming from. And that's a complete different story. That's very interesting, also. So she calls Sharippa the next day,
and Sharippa plays Bobby
Bacala,
on
very nonchalantly, and says, "Oh my God, guess what? Joe Diaz and Dom Herrera are reading for The Sopranos tomorrow." I put the audition on tape. I called Christopher Walken's wife. I go, I have the audition right here. What do you want me to do? She tells me what to do with the audition. John Wesley, you remember John Wesley? Makes the tape for me. We send it to New York. She calls back Friday at 2 in the afternoon and says, hey, everything looks great. I'll give you a call by Monday and let you know when to get the plane ticket to come out here. It was 4 episodes. I do Spider-Man 2. I get home. I go to the store Friday night. As I'm headed home that night, about 1:30 in the morning, my phone rings. And it's a 212 number. So that means it's 4:30 in the morning in New York.
Yep. And
it's Christopher Walken's wife saying to me, hey, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, what? And she goes, I just got a fucking call from the producers of The Sopranos, angry because you told somebody you were going to audition for The Sopranos. You lack a confidentiality agreement. I go, yeah, but I didn't book the job. I didn't know what happened. What are you talking about?
Right.
It's Friday at 1 in the fucking morning. What are you talking about? And she's like, well, it got wind to one of the actors that you were auditioning. He told one of the producers. So the producers don't want you on the fucking set now because it was lack of confidentiality agreement. So do you understand? I was in the bottom half. Now, would those 4 episodes change my life? No. I still would have been doing the podcast to you. I still would have been living on the fucking hill. But I want you to understand what was done. Somebody took food out of my mouth.
Right.
If he had a problem with me, call me and say, dog, listen, don't pursue this because I don't want you on the set. I really don't like you for reasons unknown or for this reason. And that was my thing.
Right.
I'm not in business to take food out of a man's mouth. If somebody said something negative about me, I have a decision to make. And that decision is either go over there and break his fucking head or move on with my life. On the other hand, there's another side to that coin. You go over there, you put your hand out, and you say, hey, all I want to know is what made you say those comments? What have I done to make you say that? There's a bunch of things you could attack this with. Me, on a personal level, Joe's argue that he doesn't want to mess with it. You know, he would just rather call and get the guy fired because the guy is saying things derogatory about him. Me, I'm just trying to, listen, man, when we do these podcasts, and I don't want to sound high on the horse or anything like that, because I know what works for my life. And I know when it comes to a person's life, simplicity is it, and we're not living in simple times no more. we live in times now that people will text you and break up with you.
Yeah.
People will email you and tell you that you don't have a job no more. What if I'm to sitting you down and man to man and going, hey, you know what, bro, this ain't working out. It's not that. It's just I don't feel it. Blah, blah, blah. And you're gonna hate me for 3 days, but in 6 years you're not gonna hate me.
Right.
Because everything happens. There's always a silver lining. You're gonna get a better job, or you're gonna meet a guy that's a millionaire now, and so you're gonna be mad, but you're always gonna think about how it was done.
Yep.
You're always gonna think about how it was done. And you're going to bump into that person 10 years from now and go, hey, bro, remember that time? I'm fucking sorry. And you're going to giggle about it. But when somebody takes food out of your mouth, you never forget how it was done.
Well, yeah, and more than that, when we were talking before about karma, like I had a situation where, this was a bunch of years ago, where I had a really big opportunity for me to open up for a tour that was perfect for my genre. It was a dirty tour. And I would have been the newbie on the thing, but I had an in, and they wanted me. And this other comic caught wind of it, and he literally called up the promoter and said, why are you working with Danielle Stewart? You should be working with me. And tried to knock me out of the thing. Now, thankfully, the promoter saw it for what it was and was like, this guy's a fucking douchebag. I don't care how funny he is. This guy's a douchebag. I don't want to work with him. Called me and told me that this other comic had thrown me under the bus. Now, where's that comic now? Who the fuck knows? Gone. Moved out of LA. Gone now. It wasn't immediate. It took a couple of years. But eventually, he got knocked out of the game. Not because of that particular phone call, but because that type of mentality where you're going to step on people, not just step on people, but try to knock people out of your way so you can get a job, that's going to land you fucking nowhere.
No, it comes back to bite you in the ass. Somewhere it comes back to bite you in the ass. I remember a lot of people don't know this story, and I wanted to tell you, Danielle. I got accused of sexual harassment, and it really always bothered me because I started in Denver, and I was at Denver Comedy Works, which is a great club. Wendy runs it, and there was this kid there that was a little ahead when I moved, because I got divorced and I moved to New York, and I started really doing comedy. But when I left Colorado, I had been on stage a couple times. Mm-hmm. When I came back from New York, I had a direction. I wasn't a comic, but I had a direction. And Wendy caught a hold of it one night. And this kid, when we started like weeks apart, but I had moved a little ahead of him now. Just my experience in New York, driving, people taking me to these shitholes. My experience had grown. So when I went back, I was a little better than he was. And one night I showcased, and she gave me a 10-minute spot. She goes, I really like your stuff. Do you? And that's how I met Felicia. A lot of people always say, I met Felicia at the Denver Comedy Works. And Felicia was one of my biggest supporters, her and John Panette. Well, you got to put this guy in the rotation. He's good. 10 minutes. He's perfect for what you need. And this is Denver. He's New York. He adds a little credibility to your club or whatever. So one night, we're walking out, me and this kid. I even forgot his name. I don't even know what his fucking name is. And there was this little stripper girl that was starting to be in comedy. And everybody fucked her, everybody hit on her or whatever. She's real cute. And she ran at me and she jumped.
Onto you?
Like onto me, like, oh my God. And she jumped. And when she jumped, I grabbed her ass cheeks. Like that's where my hands were. And I just grabbed her and I had like one hand on her back. But the kid seen it. Do you know that kid pulled her aside and said, he grabbed your ass. You should really file for sexual harassment charges. And they pulled it off. And
really?
I got banned from the Denver Comedy Works. And then that kid went on to become a comic for a few years, but he couldn't cut it, so he became a club manager. And people abused him so much, he had to quit and leave. And it's like, you tried to ruin my career, and because of that move, I'm here now.
Right.
Because here I am in Denver with my thumb in my ass. I'm fighting with my ex-wife.
Or her ass.
I'm fighting with the fucking, I'm fighting with her father. I'm fighting with my daughter. I'm fighting with everybody. Now you're not going to give me spots in Denver. Why am I even going to live here? And I ended up here. So he did me a favor. Because
that chick's not a comic.
No,
exactly.
she's got
Same
9
thing.
kids.
She's just as much to blame as he is.
Because she went along with it. He was like, you don't understand. If a comic does that to you now, later on in your comedic career, people are going to know that he grabbed your ass. And she bought it. I remember her calling me and saying, I don't feel bad, but they're all saying I should do it. And I sat there going, where are these people getting this from? And sometimes, I don't know if it was jealousy. I don't know what was wrong with that kid. But it's just so weird. Like, why make this move to end up nowhere? My friend Pete used to own the Houston Comedy Club. And there was a girl down there that worked for Pete. They were tight. They eat at each other's houses. They knew everything. Then she started dating a comedian. Pete would give the guy work out of respect. You work in the office. He had him every week they're opening. And one day his partner came in and the chick went behind his back and said he's robbing. And they fired Pete. They bought him out. And this chick was going to take over the club and make her boyfriend a headliner or whatever. And guess what happened? The club closed down.
Wow.
So they made this big fucking move to take over Houston. And now he's installing fucking transmissions. And she's gaining weight by the fucking day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Somewhere. She was a good-looking girl, too.
Is that the spot? Comedy spot?
This was the comedy laugh spot. The
Laugh
laugh
spot.
stop. The laugh stop.
Laugh stop. Uh-huh.
And then then it turned into a laugh spot, and then it closed down. But before all that, it was because of her. She went behind their back and tried to rat him out and fucking,
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
If you're going to make a move, make a fucking move. If you're going to rob me, rob me. Don't just rob me because you don't want Danielle on the show. Where are you going with that? I never understood that kind of mentality. And that's what's killing us, because that type of mentality leads to other stupid fucking decisions.
Well,
if you're going to be a man, act like it. Danny Skirts, thank you for fucking covering for my main woman, Felicia Michaels.
It's been my pleasure and honor to be here. I love filling in on Beauty and the Beast.
You're a fucking animal. Thank you, cocksuckers. And don't forget, email us at beautyandthebeastpodcast@gmail.com. And most importantly, stay black.